I don't know. I guess just because I was feeling hungry, I got the appetizer sampler from Applebee's. So I'm kind of doing a little a little mini mukbang.
Speaking of mukbangs, did you see the thing with that Nikocado avocado guy?
How he like lost a shitload of weight or whatever.
He recorded like a bunch of videos of him like doing mukbang shit, just increasing, just getting like fatter and fatter and unhealthier and unhealthier. And like, I feel like every once in a while there would be like a big picture, like a big post of him with like his like oxygen tank on or whatever. And everyone's like, holy shit, this guy's gonna die. Like this YouTuber is going to die. And we all watched him die. And then like 2 days ago, he posts a video like a Joker reveal, like, ha ha ha. I've been epically trolling you this whole time, and he calls it a social experiment. But I'm like, what? What was your end goal? What type of thing about society were you trying to say? It's like, you all said that I was dying and that I was fat and that I was a freak to watch, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of That's like what freaks do online. Like, I don't think people that like accurately called that out were wrong. But now he's like, what do you think of me now? I didn't even watch the full video. All I saw was like bits and pieces of it that were kind of posted in my timeline. But I'm like, I don't know what social experiment he was trying to do, like, other than you don't, judge a book by its cover. But like literally every video that he was in, him and like his husband, because I know he's gay. There was like, I think there was like an underlying narrative in all of his videos that were like, I'm done with him. We're breaking up, and then like I can't live without him. And then there's just like the thumbnail is both of them crying, like covered in marinara, just like I don't know, a grotesque.
I feel like they would do those like our relationship is over, but it would be like they'd be like doing a mukbang together and like talking about it. It's really weird.
Just as they're tearfully, talking about why they can't be together anymore. They're just like slurping down udon noodles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, what's his? I mean, is he? Because I think even in his like 2 steps ahead video, I think even then, like near the end of the video, he does start doing like a mukbang. Like he's like talking about this thing, and then he just grabs a pair of chopsticks and like one of those bowls, and he just starts going. Yeah. I don't know.
The theory that I've heard, which I think makes sense, is that it was like a fetish thing. Like he had like rich donors like who are like into that stuff. Like
yeah, because I do think he did like an OnlyFans thing as well. And I think
I believe so.
And like there were posts that were like, so you're telling me you posting like your horrifically like chapped asshole on OnlyFans was all part of your social experiment?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly.
But it's like, he probably made a shitload of money. I mean, I can't say I would do the same in that situation, because I guess that is a very unique situation to find yourself in.
Yeah.
But it's like also losing who like, when did he start the weight loss journey? Because I think losing 250 pounds in a year is bad. I don't think your body's not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, massive weight fluctuation either way, I think can be kind of...
You're not Christian Bale.
Iffy? Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly, yeah. I want to say that like he before he got all, weird and whatever, and maybe we'll do more so now, was like he knows food nutrition stuff, so I don't know, maybe he just
Oh.
He knows what to eat, what to not eat. Because, I mean, a lot of those people who do mukbangs, I shouldn't say a lot, but I have seen ones who have, like, you know, popular mukbang channels where I assume they do those a lot, but they're still skinny. Not all of them. Some of them are heavier, whatever. But
Right.
some of them are still skinny. It's like, you gotta be, you know, eating, if you're eating that much stuff in, like, sittings, you gotta be eating right otherwise. Unless they just, maybe as soon as the video's over, they just puke it up, you know? I don't know. That's also possible.
It's like, all right, honey, get the tarp. I have to record my YouTube video. And yeah, it's like you got one of those calorie counting apps, and you just have to log like 8,000 calories for like, you know, your like fitness tracker app is like, whoa, dude.
Yeah.
Whoa, are you sure? Did you like fat finger that? Was that a typo? You're like, no, that was 8,000 calories of teriyaki and udon noodles.
It does seem to be a lot of noodles and stuff. I wonder why. Maybe they're easy to get down even if you're full.
Yeah. There's probably like a tier list of like things that feel better throwing up, and udon noodles is probably it's probably easier to throw up those than like, you know.
I can see that, yeah. They just shoot out like a bunch of worms. Like it probably would be pretty easy, yeah. Okay, fitting. Welcome back to There Will Be Duds, ladies and gents. This is episode 159, and I am your co-host TJ, and with me, as always, I am Nick. And as always, I was thinking about doing it, yeah. And as always, we watched a movie. That movie this week being Leonard Part 6 from 1987, directed by Paul Weiland. Yes. It is a kind of spy spoof comedy movie centered around a retired CIA agent extraordinaire who's pulled back into the business to save the world from like Lady Medusa or something was her name.
The Oracle.
The Oracle, yeah. From taking over the world or killing a bunch of people by like controlling the animals or something. I was a little muddy on some of the details.
Yeah.
But it features everyone's favorite America's dad, William Cosby.
Yeah.
It's Reviled is a very bad movie. I think I saw it has one positive review, like critic review on like Rotten Tomatoes.
Interesting.
And yeah, no, it's considered to be really really bad. I mean, that's kind of why I put it in there. And also, there's the added weirdness of it being a Bill Cosby movie. This was bad. This was bad before.
There were like a handful of cheeky letterboxd reviews that were like, it's weird that this is the second worst thing that Bill Cosby's ever done.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, man, it's never a good sign when Roger Ebert tells you that you should be ashamed of yourself. Like, there's like a bad movie, right? Like that happens. Like, some bad movies get made, you know. Sometimes you don't know it's bad until it comes out, and then everyone who worked on it is like, oh shit, we made a bad movie. But like, you hear stories about like during the production, it's probably great, it's probably awesome, everyone was having a great time, and then they saw the finished product, and then you're like, oh my god, what was this thing that I was in? Like, apparently Bill Cosby himself was like, it was like rumored that he was campaigning against the movie, telling people not to go to it.
Yeah,
like he kind of disowned it. And like, I feel like that happens usually when like a bigger name actor is in a movie, and like maybe they feel swindled. Maybe they're like, oh, I didn't realize this is what it was gonna be. Like, I regret doing this. but it feels weird for Bill Cosby to go on and be like, no one should see this movie, it's terrible, I disown it, when it's like story by Bill Cosby, produced by Bill Cosby, starring like you had a huge hand in making this. So like what about it, like did you want to disown? Was it just like early, was he trying to get ahead of it, like the critics, critic testing, they were like, this sucks dog shit, and then he's like, oh, actually I'm disowning this movie? I don't understand.
Yeah, like at what point in the timeline did he start to realize?
It's like, bitch, you wrote the thing, you wrote this.
Yeah. And and I will say, one of my notes, I did note how like I don't know how to put it, like how kind of off the directing was. Like it didn't feel like it was like I looked up to see if this guy had done other comedies, and actually it looks like he directed some of Mr. Bean, and he directed some of Blackadder, which are both Rowan Atkinson deals. Very funny. But I will say those are also pretty like statically shot.
Yeah.
Whereas like there were so many scenes that were so like flat in this, and I guess, I mean, like it felt like it was shot for TV and not by somebody who knew how to direct comedy. And that's why I looked up to see if he had done anything else in this genre, because it didn't feel like, from that standpoint, from like a cinematography and like directing standpoint, it didn't feel super comedic, other than like the actors like Bill Cosby, who is just like, he is a natural comedian, so you can't take that from him or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, just kind of and it made like certain scenes feel kind of awkward, like certain bits, like shots would linger too long, and it's like, oh, you're kind of losing the whatever, the flow of like the joke or whatever, the comedy, by kind of not editing certain bits properly. So like some of it could be that, but it's not like, I'm not putting all the blame on the director or anything. It's not like it's, this was like a gem before, like, other than that, right?
Yeah.
Damn.
I'm gonna put my cards on the table here. I am leaning a little more spud than dud with this one. And mostly it's just because I have so many notes. Usually with dud movies, they're either like, I have to pause it to keep writing, because I'm just like, what is going on? This is insane. This is insane. This thing is insane. With dud, capital D, dud movies, I hardly write any notes, because I'm just like, this shit sucks and is boring and doesn't make sense. But in a very modestly light defense of this movie, there were some goofs and gags that I thought were kind of clever and made me laugh a little bit. There were a few that...
This is weird.
Why?
I'm right there with you, actually. I thought I was going to have to do this. This is weird.
You thought I was gonna like hate this?
I was doing my classic, like, I was doing my classic kind of middle of the road take before I dropped either the hate hammer or the but yeah, I thought the whole time watching it, I was like, barring recent developments, right? Again, this was hated since release.
Yes.
Right.
Bill Cosby's kind of a wet blanket in this movie. He is like easily like the least funny part of it to me.
A little. There was some bits with him that were like he reacted to certain like bits a little.
There were some visual gags with him that were like kind of funny. But like the sort of like pre-Marvel style like punchlines, that kind of stuff, I was like, whatever. But other things I didn't hate.
Yeah, my prevailing thought the whole time was like, I was like, why is that? Like, it's if this had been like an average to like lower, like even if it had poor reviews, it's like, okay, yeah, it's not the best comedy ever. I would say most of the funniest parts were the, lightly exhale through my mouth type laughter kind of stuff. Yeah. But I could not understand why it is like regarded as like one of the worst movies ever, because I thought it was kind of fine, like for an 80s comedy movie, like doing what it is. I thought it was like average to a little under,
Yeah. The like the bit with the rainbow trout, the rainbow trout was like sniffing and barking like a dog. Which I saw a Letterboxd review. There was like a really, really long one where someone was basically asking a bunch of questions like, why is this like this? Why is this like that? And they're like, why is this fish barking? And I was like, did you miss the bit? Like, the bit is that it's like a sniffing dog. Like the whole bit is that like they're showing the fish the picture of the guy to kill, and it's like he's picking up on his scent essentially. And so it's like, that's like a dog. A dog does that. Like, that's like the trope in movies. So that's why, I don't know. It seems like sometimes he was like trying to nitpick like everything as to make it seem like this movie was wholly incompetent and like didn't make any sense. And I was like, no, that was like kind of a setup for like a goof. Like, it's like, oh, this is like a sniffing dog, but it's a fish. The first thing that I thought was like, this movie is kind of raunchy for a Bill Cosby movie. And that is kind of my theory as to like maybe why he like disowned it so quickly. But again, it's hard to really figure that out because he also wrote the thing. So it's like he's disowning the thing that he wrote. Because like in that beginning scene, you see like this woman getting into the pool and like you can see her nipples through the swimsuit. You see like side boob. And I'm like, this is a PG movie, but it's just like I was like, this is like a family friendly, like Bill Cosby movie, right? Like that's his whole deal at the time, because this is like what, 1987.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't think he's ever really been particularly raunchy as a comedian, but like,
I think so. I think that's kind of like his thing.
By 87, it's like he's got comedy specials. I don't know if the Cosby Show was out at this point. It might have been like a year. I think
so. I'm pretty sure. I think it's had to start in the.
But it's like, yeah, you've done like the Cosby Kids. You've done Fat Albert. Like you have this image as a kind of a squeaky clean guy, and then it's like I'm seeing fish reading Playboy bits. I'm seeing like side boob and nips in the beginning of this movie. I'm like, this is kind of raunchy for a Bill Cosby movie.
Yeah. I could see that maybe, like that could be something that was added later that he didn't necessarily write in. I don't know.
Yeah, because like maybe he wasn't like on set that day for those scenes, so he's like, no, you can't show that. This is like, maybe his bits that he wrote were too tame, and then like maybe as they're making it, they like kind of punched it up a little bit, and he wasn't there. I'm cutting them a lot of checks, but
yeah. Yeah, which like I realized watching this too, I was like, I don't know if I've ever actually watched something that, like, I've probably seen him on like talk shows or something like that. It's like not like I've never seen him like talk before or anything like that, but I was like, I don't know if I've ever actually seen him act in anything. Because I didn't watch like Cosby Show. That was before my time.
Right.
But I that was another thing that I kept thinking was like, man, this is why, like, more so than other people, like it was like devastating for people when all that stuff about him came out, because like he builds his whole sort of like personality, or like outside of this, but in the movie too, around like being the like wholesome family man, like America's Dad, like I was saying, like he's
like he's up there with Fred Rogers in like the American
kind of
lexicon of just like role models and people to look people that are like that have good things to say, and like you know, like his stand up is it's like his whole thing with his stand up is that it can be relatable to anybody, and he doesn't have to be crass, and he can like captivate a room with his storytelling and like joke writing. You know, it's
he's like Will Smith is to like music, is Bill Cosby to comedy.
Bill Cosby himself is Will Smith's Willennium.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, even, you know, like he has a couple scenes with his daughter, and it's basically him kind of like, you know, he meets her boyfriend who's older than him, and it's about him, like he has a sit down with him, and he's like,
we're in love, we're going to get married.
This is my daughter.
Right.
She's 20 years old.
Right.
And you're 65?
66.
I don't want a 66-year-old son-in-law. You're robbing the cradle.
Depends on your point of view. Some say Joan is robbing the grave.
Well, I mean, for a long time, Cosby's whole
reality.
Shtick, his whole shtick also was like, because I know he got into trouble within like the black community because he was one of those like, you know, you guys really do need to pull your pants up kind of guys. Like he would do speeches, and he'd be like, you know, talking to like black men and being like, now you don't need to hit your girlfriend just because like you don't have a job and you can only get minimum wage work. Like, pull your pants up. And it's like, holy shit, dude. Like, and again, and then it was just like, was even worse when you found out that he's just like a horrendous monster rapist. But he's like telling all these young black men to like, the reason that your life sucks is because like you want to be a gangster and like you don't pull your pants up. And then it's just like he just does like the worst shit of all time. But it's like it's very like, you know, inadvertently appealing to white people. Like he basically says what white people want to say, which is just like thugs aren't cool, like that kind of shit. So it's like he's very like he's very wholesome in that way, like tries to be wholesome, air quotes, you know.
I saw an edit of the scene where he's like, where the factory or whatever at the end is like blowing up, and he's dropping the Alka-Seltzers into the pools of the liquids.
I didn't even like, oh shit.
They like changed to Quaaludes. And I think they changed some of the audio around too, so he's like, take this and you're gonna go to sleep. He like throws it in.
Jesus Christ. Oh, I didn't even make that connection. But I did. I wonder if you noticed this as well. The first scene that you see Leonard in, he's like working at the restaurant, and he's pouring like yogurt or whatever into parfaits.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, don't drink those parfaits.
Oh,
like, don't do it.
That was funny. No, I was just I've never seen anybody like do it. Like, I mean, I guess that would make sense. That's how they're done at like fancy restaurants or whatever. But I was just like, what is he doing? Yeah.
And I was like, he's this like hotshot retired CIA guy. Is he like a waiter there? Like, does he own the restaurant? Like,
I think he owns the restaurant.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's part of like the, hi, I'm the owner. Like you know how like sometimes restaurants, like someone will come by, like the manager will come by and be like, how are we liking those first bites? You know, that shit.
I think that's the idea. Yeah, that's what he was kind of doing. Kalia said that it was like the Naked Gun movies. And while I think that the Naked Gun movies are, or at least the first one, I mean, I mostly watched that one when I was a kid, or like when I was younger. I've seen the other two, but I can't like fully vouch for those. But the first one I think is brilliant. I've watched the TV show that preceded it. I think it's just called From the Files of Police Squad. Brilliant. I love that absurdist, like literal humor that they use in those all the time. I thought this during that scene in the restaurant where the guy like takes him into the, you know, he's like, oh, can you or he's like, oh, my food draw, and he's like, oh, you want to see where we keep our fish tank in the back? And he's like, yes, and then he just uses that as an excuse to like corner him or whatever. And like at first I was like, oh yeah, he took him into this back room where there's no witnesses. Meanwhile, there's like a dozen like cooks walking around. Yeah. But then they're like not reacting, and they're doing that really slow, like he's firing at him, and it's like bouncing it off plates and whatever. But then I quickly realized, I was like, oh yeah, this is just kind of like a Naked Gun, because this is totally something that would happen in one of those. Just this like dumb, absurdist sort of like action scene, I guess. And it's like, yeah, he did take him back there, and yeah, there's people, so like, why did he even bother doing that or whatever? And another thing, yeah, that I realized was so Naked Gun started out as that TV show, the Police Squad, and it only lasted I want to say 6 episodes, because it was canceled like basically immediately because nobody thought it was funny.
Interesting.
And obviously comedy is subjective,
right?
But it's like, but then like the movie comes out and it's like
it's
like a classic now, yeah. And it's the same exact kind of humor. It's just, I think at least in Naked Gun's case, I think it was ahead of its time. I think another thing is like they didn't have a laugh track in the show, and at that time that was where like every sitcom had a laugh track. Yeah. So like people didn't know when to laugh.
Right.
Just fucking ridiculous. But I was thinking like, yeah, maybe people, and again, Leonard Part 6, not a masterpiece. It's not like amazing, but I do wonder if people are like the people on like the person on Letterboxd is like questioning all this stuff. It's like, don't question it. Like that's part of the joke.
Yeah. It's like, why isn't anyone in the kitchen respond? Like there's someone in the kitchen with a gun firing at someone else, and yet they keep working. And I was like, my thought was like, on one hand, yeah, it is absurd, but I was like, yeah, kitchens are so busy sometimes that like they don't even realize that someone is like firing a gun. Like they just keep going. And then I feel like it reinforces that bit, because he'll like shoot something and it'll like, he'll shoot and he'll miss, but he'll hit like a crate, like a little, like a cardboard crate of eggs, and the 2 eggs will crack and land perfectly on the flat top and start to sizzle. Or like he'll shoot something else and it hit like some herbs, and like the herbs fall into the spaghetti sauce or something like that. Like basically, yeah, that's like, these are all visual gags where it's like every shot that misses ricochets off and inadvertently does something to the food that like the chef was gonna do already, but then it just like saves a step for them. And they're just like, oh, okay. And like they keep, stirring. And like, I think even like Leonard goes through and he's like, make spaghetti or like make the sauce or something like that. And like he picks up some noodles and like slurps some. So I was like, oh, okay. Like if it just happened and there was none of that like absurdist shit, and he just like started firing a gun at him in the kitchen and no one responded, I'd be like, yeah, that's stupid. But like it was a bit that was like, it worked in the context of the movie of like this sort of like absurdity. Like, I mean, you start out with the rainbow trout bit, and they kind of almost do like a little, I don't know if they were intentionally doing like a Jaws homage, but basically, he kind of like gets sucked into the water and you see his hand come up and then he goes down.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, a singular rainbow trout like killed this guy. Like that's obviously not a realistic thing that can happen. And like even like the narration from what's his name? Frayne.
Yeah, Frayne.
He's like the original, the first 5 adventures from Leonard are actually like classified by the CIA or something. Like, I mean, there's like dialogue that kind of sets the tone that this is like a spoof movie, If none of that was there, I'd be like, yeah, this is terrible. But
yeah,
I feel like the bits are set up and work.
Yeah.
And that scene ends with the dude getting shot in the head.
Yeah. Yeah,
which again, right. There's not a ton of blood in this movie. Obviously, I'm assuming it's because it was like for PG, purposes. They're not trying to make it, PG-13, because they're like, it's Bill Cosby. He has this image, so we're gonna, PG. They can have a little bit of raunchy humor, like a lot of like the, the raunchiest Bill Cosby bits, I would imagine, are just like they have a slight amount of innuendo, but he makes you think of it. He doesn't say it, he sort of implies it. So it's like, this is a PG movie, but like the bullet ricochets around the entire kitchen, and they kind of do it. I don't know if they do it like
boom, boom.
They're all like watching it go pew pew pew, and then it finally goes back and hits the dude in the back of the head, and he like falls into the rainbow trout like aquarium or wherever they keep them. But I was just like, that's a headshot in a Bill Cosby movie, which was like I'm very surprised that he signed off on that, because it's like it's not like they did that without his consent, or like that's ironic saying that about Bill Cosby. It's not like, you know, they shot that scene without him and they punched it up and made it more violent without telling him. Like, he's in there in the scene with him and like reacts to it. So you know.
Yeah, I feel like all the other like deaths or knockouts or what have you are more like comical. I feel like
the Marilyn Manson guy at the end.
Oh, are you talking about like the
one of the henchmen? Yes.
Man Ray. That was his name. Maybe it's the one I'm thinking of with like the red hair.
Yeah, was it Man Ray? Because I knew it was she was Medusa.
Yeah, no. How did he die again? Oh, he was the wiener. Yeah, he like ate the hot dog and then his head exploded.
Yeah,
but it was like confetti and like
That's, and I was like, anytime... is he an alien? Like what?
I don't know. I don't like.
It was an interesting like I guess like setup for like the motives of the main villain, which I guess are still sort of unclear to me. She's gonna brainwash the animals to take over the world, I guess.
Yeah.
With her sphere. I don't know what the sphere did.
I could not follow the tech at all. Yeah. And then she's like, it doesn't matter what. She's like, oh, you replaced that with dish soap. He's like, oh, yeah. She's like, well, the original was dish soap because it doesn't matter what was in it. It's the core processor unit is the important thing. I was like, okay, let's not do this. Just say you caught him and you put the original stuff back in. Yeah. And then the weird thing is, like, if the liquid doesn't really matter, why does he go through the effort of like Alka-Seltzering all the vats of liquid? Because it apparently doesn't matter. Like, okay, you blow that up, it sounds like you could put water in it and it would be fine. From what I understand.
Yeah.
So that was what was in it in the first place, you restaurant spaz. It's not the liquid that makes the magic. It's the molybdenum chromium catalyst. I could put yoo-hoo in this thing and it would work. And you call yourself a college graduate.
Yeah, there was a lot of confusing shit about like that. The whole like villain.
Like the whole thing was basically a MacGuffin.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, I guess he ends up going back because they kidnap his wife, but, like, halfway through the movie, he infiltrates the place, like, takes the sphere and then leaves, and I'm like, oh, okay, so what do we do next? Like, what happens after this? And then, you know, she comes to the play, and then, Man Ray comes to the play and kidnaps everyone.
There is some stuff, like, the MacGuffin with the villain and, like, what they're even going for being very confusing. Like, that's the mark of, like, a bad writing, bad script or whatever. So this movie does have plenty of that stuff. And that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think it's a great movie, because it does have a lot of flaws. I just don't think it is one of the worst movies ever made.
Yeah.
But another one of those flaws that I had, or I guess, was, like, the whole thing with his wife was very weird. Because it was, like, you find out that he quit the CIA to try to, like...
be like a family man,
to like mend their relationship. I guess that was like the idea, is that she had kind of left him because of
he was in the jacuzzi with a couple other women or something like that.
But it was like part of his job or something. I don't know. And he's like, it was 7 years ago, I think, was when he quit. And then all this stuff starts happening, and then his wife calls him over for dinner, and then there's that weird scene where she's like putting all the food on him and stuff. And then, but then, like, the next time you see her, I think the next time you see her, it might be at the daughter's play. And, like, I don't even know if they talk before then, but you see them together. It's like, oh, okay, they're going to the play together.
Right.
And that could just be, you know, parents are kind of put aside their personal bullshit to you know, be there for their kids or whatever. But then they just kind of like, after that, it seems like they're basically together again. And like, I was just very confused by the whole, I thought for sure the wife was going to, like, when she called him over to her house and then she was like, don't, I thought for sure it was like Medusa like blackmailed her or set her up to like do this and re-engage with him or something. But then no, it was just like coincidentally the first important thing in your life basically since you left me, I'm gonna get involved again and just basically be another kind of like, all she ends up being is a, you know, damsel in distress, when it's like he already had the daughter. Like, it could have just been, the daughter could have been it's just muddy. There's a lot of muddy issues with the script, and that's one of them to me.
I would agree. And also I was like, this has got to be like someone's fetish, right? The covering
food
him
stuff?
food, because it happens like twice.
Nikocado avocado.
There we go. Yeah, this was like in the basement of his grandma's house, and he watched Leonard Part 6 as a young child and was like, yeah, again, that was like another like kind of like raunchy Bill Cosby thing that I was kind of shocked by. You know, and you know, it's like maybe there was another line of dialogue, like you said, that like, you know, he was in this compromising position, but he had to do it for his work or whatever. But I was like, you know, usually in these types of stories where like, you know, your protagonist is like this, you know, he's the hero basically, like the like he wouldn't have a fault like that. Like, you know, he maybe, you know, his fault would be that he cared too much about his job. It wouldn't be that like he was essentially cheating on his wife with like 2 bikini babes in a hot tub or something like that. Whether it was for work or not, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like they would do more to make it seem like a misunderstanding, but it definitely seems like he was like, oh yeah, I guess, you know, like, I don't know why she's so mad about that, like, but it was for work. But he doesn't seem very like remorseful about it.
Yeah,
which again,
really.
It's like, I'm not used to like a morally complex protagonist in Bill Cosby, because the image of him at the time was this very unassailable guy.
Yeah, but now he is morally, I guess, complex. Maybe that was just a pre, or that was like a foreshadowing or whatever. Like,
right.
I don't know.
I thought it was funny that they got Sarah Palmer in this movie.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were gonna mention that.
Yeah. As like
For a
CIA
little bit.
woman. Yeah.
Oh, and the guy who was like the leader, I guess, of those little groups. He's was kind of, I don't know if they did that on purpose or if he was even in one at this point. But he's actually like in a few James Bond movies as like his CIA connection or whatever.
Yeah, because I looked at him, because like he seemed like I looked at him and I was like, this guy seems familiar. And then like, yeah, his number 1 listed movie was GoldenEye.
Yeah. I think he's in that. He might be in the one Tomorrow Never Dies and then The Living Daylights. So he's in a couple. Which is not a lot of actors other than like the main people that show up in like multiple ones. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, what? Oh, that was another. That was rewinding a little bit. We were talking about like the violence in it. But it kind of taken back, because when he like they have the sphere in their like headquarters, and then he realizes he has to go like save his wife, so he steals it back and he like sicks the rabbits on them, and you just see like their silhouettes being like pecked at by the rabbits. I was like, Jesus, he's fucking killing all of them. But then they're all like back at the end. I was like, well,
they have
why didn't they
Band-Aids
die
on them or whatever. But...
Yeah. But like everybody else, it's like the animals kill them in like 5 seconds. I'm like, why aren't all those people dead?
Also, I don't know if it was explained and I missed it, or it just was bad storytelling. I'm going to go ahead and err on the side of bad storytelling. But like, did he basically double cross the CIA too, or did he because he like six the rabbits on them, like he says their trigger word to like attack them, and it's like, I thought you were working for them, but I guess he needed it to get to his wife. I understand.
Yeah, because they just wanted to keep it to like, you know, use it. They wanted to like study it and.
But I thought one of them said like we can make a great weapon out of this. Like I feel like there was like a line of dialogue where you're almost kind of led to believe like, oh, the CIA isn't good also, which
maybe that's why like it kind of ends with him. They show up and he kind of like tells them off again, and he's like, yeah, I'm retired again or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it's like, yeah, the CIA is bad, so I'm not gonna work for them anymore, and that's the end of it. And
hold up, maybe like, this movie is based.
it's a very like light take on like, you know what, all the bad shit that they do, that is kind of bad.
Yeah.
I don't like that. It's a very like a muted response to
this is actually like
their dealings.
This is like loosely based on like the Iran-Contra affair, or something like his wife being captured, or like the United States citizens and the October surprise and all that.
I did actually mention that Medusa and her team is based for trying to like kill all the humans by way
doing
of
eco-terrorism.
Animals. I loved
pretty cool.
Andy,
the guy in the wheelchair, who all he said
was his name.
Death to all mankind.
I had a note specifically about him too. Yeah, that he was great. It's like death to humanity.
It was like his last lines was like death to humanity. It's like...
Before, did you notice when because he like rolls past, and then I think like it's like his wheelchair like hits like the edge, then he flies forward into the vat.
Yeah.
I don't know what the idea was behind this, but when he flies into the vat, it's just his top half.
I did notice that.
And then when it cuts back, you can see kind of in like the bottom of the frame his wheelchair and just legs in the thing. So I'm like, is this movie like positing that like paraplegics like just don't have legs at all, and that's why they can't use them or something?
Or like the force of that little curb was enough
split him in half.
Split him in half. Yeah, that was one of my notes though. Like, I like that Andy is just plain evil. Like,
yeah, I had no idea that he even had a name in that. That's weird.
There was like a throwaway line where I feel like Medusa talks about like how she hired everybody, and she said something about like, and then Andy joined because he was frustrated with like disability accessibility or something like that. Can we talk about the Tom of Finland ass dudes that were working for Medusa? His types of drawings are just like very, very muscular men. Most of the time their huge erect penises are like bulging through their pants, and it's like extremely homoerotic. But as soon as I saw like the fact that all of her henchmen were like these buff sailor looking dudes, I was like, is this supposed to be like queer coded? Because Rayman is also like, he's got like pink colored hair and he's kind of like effeminate. And I'm like, are they running on like the like, oh, these vegans, they're a bunch of like gay liberals or something?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was like the subtext, but I was like, so this lady, this vegetarian eco-terrorist has a bunch of like queer-coded buff sailor dudes and like a Marilyn Manson style guy, and they're all just like trying to like convince animals to kill everyone.
You called him Rayman, I just want to say.
Did I call him Rayman?
Yeah. Wow.
Rayman.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to think that like maybe that was I guess you could say like a feminist version of like the classic like, you know, male supervillain with all the hot like henchwomen who work for her. She's like, well, she's a strong like
she's
female
an
supervillain. Yeah, if she wants to hire a bunch of like hunky dudes to work for her, yeah. But I don't think
That was the subtext.
Bill Cosby is a feminist.
No.
And since he was the writer, I'm like, yeah, it probably was more just like vegetarians, gay,
Yeah.
weird, eh.
He's
Then
like,
there's,
not a
like-
feminist. I love women.
Yeah. Because then you also get the weird, which was another scene that was less like, I don't know if any of that worked for me. Basically, any of the stuff where he's in his suit, I thought that was like the weirdest fucking sequence in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Where he gets kitted out with like, that's the James Bond like Q sequence where he's like, here's all these special gadgets that I made for you, and he's like, you know, you have like underarm explosives, you have flat grenades for some reason that work just like regular grenades.
Yes. I was gonna talk about yes.
And all this stuff, and then the scene culminates with him just going to the place and then just throwing all the shit at the door, and just
It doesn't work.
it doesn't work. And then like he
She
used all the
lets him
stuff, and then she lets him in. Yeah. Like it's so bizarre. And then he goes in, and then she's like now face off against my vegetarians, and it's like the like ballet dancers in the like bird costumes.
Yes.
And I couldn't tell. I think they were just like people dressed as animals, but I couldn't tell if it was like that or if they were supposed to be like Dr. Moreau style like hybrids, because they were like, when he was like knocking them out, they were just making bird noises, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I thought of when I saw that?
The bird people?
And I wonder if you thought of it too.
You're talking about the dancer? I don't know.
We are mutants.
Oh,
The Mighty Boosh, where they're like, don't look at my face.
Yeah.
We are the mutant. Yeah. Because that's what because like the way that they were like, they had like wings and masks, and they were just kind of like peering around like corners and looking at him at first. I'm like, oh, these look like the mutants from the Mighty Boosh.
That's funny.
Yeah, the gadget, unless it was supposed to be a subversion. Again, writing a lot of checks for this movie. Like they do this like gear up scene where it's like, here are these flat grenades, and here are these types of things, and here's these, and
All this
here's
cool
your
stuff.
Because like the
And
only
it
thing that
amounts to
really
nothing.
pays off is the trimmers, like the beard trimmer.
yeah,
or whatever.
right, yeah.
Because like he shaves one of the birds down, and like the feathers are going flying, and they're all just like, oh no, or like the ballet slippers, like those come into play. But just like I was like, why introduce like flat grenades if he's not gonna utilize them in any way? Like, you know, it's like, oh, this door isn't moving. Maybe I can pull the pin and slide these grenades under the door because they're flat. Like you could utilize the thing in some kind of way. And then there was like the bladed boomerang, which again was another bit of violence that I was like not expecting for this movie, where like it goes around and like hits him in the chest, and like you see some blood drip down his front, and I'm like, oh, interesting. And then he's like, oh yeah, don't land on that. So it's like, yeah, he's like, it's pretty violent, and he's like making quips about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's like, I forgot about the bladed boomerang. But it's also like any of the stuff that is used is so like, it's so lazily used, because doesn't the guy just like take it from him, and then he's like, oh, don't throw that, and then he throws it and it kills him.
Yeah.
It's all just so like lazy. I guess the underarm cannon's kind of not in that scene, but they have, I guess you could call it a payoff in the end, because when they're like escaping the factory at the end, the Frayne like shows up and he has them, and he uses them to he like shoots them at the building or whatever. So kind of after he escapes from the factory on his like that. All I could think of, and maybe it's just because I played through him recently, it was like when he's riding out on the ostrich, it looked so much like the way that it was weirdly like layered onto
his head was big.
Yeah, it looked weird. And it looked like Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
They like ride on the ostrich in one of them at least.
they call it DK mode in GoldenEye, where like your head is slightly bigger than the rest of your body. That's what he looked like as he's like as the ostrich is like floating down. It's almost like just like a still image of Bill Cosby's head like superimposed on there. I do want to call back to probably my favorite visual gag of the movie, one that I can remember the most. It's before all of this stuff happens. It's when the CIA is kind of doing some reconnaissance on the tuna factory where Medusa, like her base of operations. And there's this CIA guy in his car kind of watching, and he's like taking notes about like what he sees and hears and like what's going on. And then I think basically like they find out that he's there immediately. So like an alarm goes off. And so Medusa's like, send in the frogs or something like that. And so the frogs show up, and I'm like, oh God, how are they going to like do this? How are they going to make the frogs kill this guy? Is it going to be like bad computer graphics at the time, or is it going to be like they're just going to like throw a bunch of like little plastic toy frogs at him and he's going to like, you know, kind of overreact like when you get, you know, like in those movies when like there's like an animal that attacks you and you're just like, you hold it and you're like, no, like that. So I'm like, how are they going to do this? And I love that, like, continuing with the bit of him like writing down everything he sees and hears, the frogs start croaking, and in his notepad he writes ribbit, and then he writes ribbit again. And then like he writes ribbit like 3 times because like he hears frogs, you know, ribbiting. And then the payoff is like, I love all the frogs get under his car and they all jump and lift his car and they bounce it into like a body of water. And I love it in these movies when guys are just like, oh well, I guess I'm dead now, because he just like very solemnly like sinks to the bottom of the lake in his car, just like, I've been bested, so I guess I'm dying now. But again, I thought that was a funny bit, that like all the frogs got under the car and then hopped his car into the lake. I thought it was clever. I was like, oh, that's not where I thought that was gonna go. And it was like, it wasn't a big laugh, but it was like a, you know, exhaling out of the nose, kind of just like, that's very silly, but it just, on a visual level, it's clever to me. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I like that bit. That was good. No, I'll tell you another bit that was like confusing for me that I guess didn't work, was after their daughter's play, they go backstage, and it's like a recurring gag that Bill Cosby and I think the director, like the boyfriend character, they keep like bumping their heads on like the lights. I'm like, yes. Is that like a?
It's like a pipe hanging down.
No, it was the light. Okay. Maybe it was a couple different things. I don't know, but there was at least one was like a light. And I was like, is that a thing that like backstages have like a low clearance? Cause I'm like, I'm no like, you know, like, I don't know. I've done my fair share of plays in a fair share of venues, and I don't know, that part was just weird to me. I think it was like
the location was also very weird.
Yeah.
Cause like it didn't look like backstage of like a theater like at all. Mm-hmm. Cause like I don't know. I mean, not that backstage. No,
it just kind of looked like a, I don't know. It looked like back rooms.
Yeah, like or like tunnels in like a sewer system or something like that. Like there was like a bunch of exposed pipes and like these hanging lights. It looked unfinished. Like it looked like it had like dirt or mud walls, and it was a very strange area. Because then there was like also that huge stack of lava soap, just like prominently placed. We haven't even talked about the product placement in this movie. Placement, well, you mentioned the Alka-Seltzer, but I was getting flashbacks of Mac and Me as I was watching this.
Oh.
With like, I think within the first 20 minutes you get like 2 Coca-Cola product shots.
I swear I was looking for that because I had heard about the like really bad, especially the Coca-Cola product placement, and I'm just like I've said this before, but I have like advertising blinders on to where like I only notice the Alka-Seltzer pretty much, and it's because it was like there's literally a close-up shot where that's like all you can see is Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah. The Coca-Cola, when he's fighting in the kitchen with the dude, there's like a part where someone gets pushed and like it's like a refrigerator opens up and there's just like cans and cans and cans of Coke.
Okay.
And then there's like another scene that's like extremely blatant where it's the scene where he's talking to like the older theater director, like after he like sends his daughter to get him a drink and a sandwich, which like cool, like fetch your father a drink and a sandwich. Yeah, like obviously it's like to get her out of the room, but I was just like, who's still just like, ew. Yeah. But the way that it's framed, it's like, here's Bill Cosby, here's the old dude. He's holding a glass of Coke and he's kind of using it to point to talk to him. And literally the way that the shot is the bottle of Coke is in the center of the frame. And like as he's talking to this guy,
I'm
like
really blind.
Like he has it turned so you see the Coke label like on the bottle. It's like front and center.
That's cool. Very cool.
But yeah, the lava soap in the backstage, and then it falls. It falls, and all the soap goes everywhere. But like that's it. No one like slips on it. Like it's almost like no one notices that it's there. I feel like there's no real payoff for like why it's there. It's just like a pyramid of lava soap. It falls on the ground. Someone like maybe picks one up and looks at it, and then the scene's done. I'm like, why was that a thing that happened?
Also, I thought it was weird that there's some stuff in this that is weird, and it doesn't seem like it's intentional, and that stuff is what like bugs me. So there's his daughter's play is being written about in the paper, right? And she's like, yeah, I'm gonna be a star, and blah blah blah. And yet when they go there, it's like a mini theater. It's like a 50-seater, and there's like 15 people in the audience.
Yeah.
It's so weird. And there was nothing like there's other instances that we've referenced about like it being intentional. It's because there's other like contextual information in the scene or dialogue that reinforces the idea that like the weirdness is on purpose, and that's like part of the comedy. But then there's stuff like that just makes it feel like it was lazy, and maybe they forgot to put out a like casting call for extras that day or something. You know.
Yeah, that sequence was very strange. I mean, I guess the thing about that scene that did make me laugh, I guess, was obviously the absurdity of like just like very explicit full frontal nudity. I mean, very explicit in the sense that like the theater goers got that. We didn't see anything, but still, again, even like her doing the striptease, I was like, this is very raunchy for like a Bill Cosby movie. And then like at the end, like she kind of bows, and it's just like you can see her bare back, and you're like, I'm like, holy shit, her tits are out. Like again, it's just, I couldn't believe that.
I think how it would be justified is like as far as like, oh, that was a little raunchy thing, but like how it would be justified by him or whatever about the movie or whatever is that like that was all a setup for him to talk to her about it and try to like impose it, because I feel like that kind of felt like a classic, like I could see something along those lines being in like the Cosby Show, where one of the kids does something a little adult or a little raunchy, and then at the the end of the episode is Bill like sitting them down and being like, that's not very proper of a young man, lady or fellow. And that's like, well, that's why they had it. It wasn't because, like, you know, it actually likes that. It's because he's trying to educate the youth of America that
there's
a
moral reason for it existing in the movie.
Yeah.
But that would be such a funny episode of the Cosby Show where it's just like Theo cheated on his homework, and then the B plot is his daughter is like dating a 65-year-old man at the local theater, and he wrote a play specifically for her to show her boobs in. And it's like, like that's the B plot, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
One of the other bits near that scene that I wasn't sure if it was meant to be funny or if it was done intentionally, but when he goes back and finds his family and everyone tied up, I thought it was very funny that there was like a ransom note taped to his daughter, and they did like that thing where they use different fonts to be like, if you ever want to see your wife again, you know what to do. And it's like, I was laughing at the idea of them doing like the text bit using different forms of fonts, and it's like, who else is it gonna be? Why are you trying to like make it seem anonymous or like a ransom note? Like, he knows exactly who it is, so why are you trying to like I mean, obviously it's like a visual gag because that's like a trope, is that, you know, when someone gets kidnapped they use like you know, the newspaper clippings text. But I was like, why are you doing this? He knows who you are. Like,
Apparently there's some references to Dadaism in this. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's like, do you know what that is?
I think so. Is that like absurdity, or like it's like a prevailing style of the time?
Yeah. That like I got this. I think I got this from like an article or something. But like his two of the butlers' names there's Marcel and Duchamp, which Marcel Duchamp was like an artist of that style. And then apparently when he goes to see the not the Oracle from the Matrix, but like his Oracle lady or whatever.
Oh yeah. I forgot
what her name was. But apparently like when she's like, it's like made to be like she's just like speaking gibberish or whatever. Apparently that's a Hugo Ball poem. Who was another like big figure in Dadaism, which like that's insane if that's true. That like what a reference for him to like slip in there. It's crazy.
Yeah. Again, your choice of words there is very good.
Yeah. Oh Jesus.
Yeah,
Christ.
that seems a little. I mean, it seems a little highbrow for Bill Cosby. Also, again, I would not expect like Dadaism to be like a subtextual thing in one of his movies.
Yeah, but it just also just backs the whole like, because the comedy is absurdist. So like, I guess that is kind of what it is. It's a Dadaist comedy movie. So yeah,
kind of, yeah. I mean, so like my whole experience watching this movie was like, if you remove like like the sort of like slow Bill Cosby bits, if this is just a movie of like absurdist shit, kind of like in the vein of like The Naked Gun, I think this would be right up there with like those movies as like something that came out that people hated because they were like, they watched it seriously and like, you know, they didn't like it because they didn't understand it. Maybe like you know, like The Monkees Head, which we did like a couple years ago. Like all the Monkees fans hated that movie, and it's because like the Monkees were kind of doing like a spoof on like, you know, their Squeaky Clean image. They're doing this like weirdo, absurdist, like almost like outsider art style shit that like people are like, oh, I get this now. I get like the parody, like the satire of what they're doing. Like, but I think with this movie is that like, I think it needed to be raunchier. I think it needed to be like a PG-13 or an R rating, because the goofs that I thought were the best usually revolved around somebody dying or somebody getting like physically hurt. And I think it's like you needed more of that to make this movie good. Remove the whole, like, I don't know, I guess like the family man fatherly shit that like Bill Cosby probably felt like he needed to insert, because like that's like his entire thing. Like all of his stand up, like all that shit is basically just like telling stories about like family interactions, and like that's like a huge aspect of his career. But it's like if this was all just like super violent, absurdist weirdo shit, I would have been like, this movie rocks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I'll reference the I want to say this is the same article that I got the Dadaism stuff from. It's and it's actually from an In Defense of Leonard Part 6.
Interesting. Okay.
Jesse Cataldo, the writer. And I like this quote that I pulled, because I think it's a really nice, like, concise, like, reason why this didn't work for like most people, and why it's prevented from being like a, you know, like a cult classic, like a good cult classic, I should say. He says the movie is insistently weird without being consistently funny. And I think that is like its greatest sin, is that like because it's always strange and it's always weird, but it's like I was mentioning before, like with the theater stuff, or like with the stuff where he's fighting like the bird dancer people. It's like some of it doesn't work, and like when it doesn't work, it like really doesn't work. And it's like so there's those things that keep me, somebody who liked it more than like 99% of people.
Yeah.
That keeps me from being like, oh yeah, that's a really good movie, you know, like that's pretty funny. It's because there's a lot of weird elements, a lot of weird like dumb shit that just isn't funny. Then there's some stuff that is. It's just, you know, it's a very mixed bag, which is not a good thing given how strange it is, I guess.
Right. I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at with like the PG rating. Like it couldn't fully commit, I think, to those things that did work in this movie, which is weird, absurdist bits that usually end in like violence, I guess, or just like, you know, like he eats a wiener and his head explodes. Yeah, and it's just like this like sawdusty like mixture of stuff that like flies into the room. You know, it's like or like her inexplicable henchmen all being like these like seemingly buff sailor dudes in like tank tops. I'm like, and it's like it's not even remarked upon or addressed at all. It's just part of the movie, and like I loved it for that. Like all of her henchmen are like these weird ass dudes, like just very like kind of queenie, effeminate guys that are like, ew, meat, and he's like, you know, throwing the ground beef at him. Yeah. The car chase was okay, I guess. I did that shit was weird too, because that was like she was like teleporting people around, like they're just driving, and then like Frayne or whatever his name is just like teleports into her bus, and then she's in the car with him. And then there's like kids in the back of the bus playing video games or something. That whole sequence was very like weird, but not in like the funny bit way. It was weird in the I'm confused as to what's going on here way.
Well, apparently, I guess the video game they were playing was also a product placement. I don't know what the game was, but that's what I thought that was. Of course, it was one of those. Yeah, the most disappointing part for that was that like there's a part where they go, you know, they go over like a hill, and you see like the slow-mo of them like in the air, you know, the cars go over, and but then like when they land, there's like no recoil. Like it shows the van or the bus flying through the air, and you see Frayne like at the steering wheel, like, oh, and then it lands, and he's like He's like this. There's no ooh like that. And man, it cut back to the kids when they were in the air, and I was like, that would be so fucking awesome if they like hit and these kids just fucking like just fucking die, like just get thrown to the front of the bus.
Yeah. Mr. Cosby, our test audiences are saying that they wanted more kid death in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm good to move on. We talked about this movie a lot.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I'm good to move though.
Yeah. I do miss Josh's commentary here because I'm very curious as to like, because he's like a pretty well-read guy. I'm sure he probably knows more about like Dadaism as a movement.
Yeah, maybe he would be able to speak more on that. Yeah.
So I would be interested to hear his take on this movie because I don't know, because like he kind of brought in One from the Heart, and people thought, I think that was another movie that maybe wasn't necessarily as loved when it initially came out, but then people sort of like respected it. There's like elements that worked and elements that don't work. I'm not saying that Leonard Part 6 is on the same scale as like from One from the Heart, because like Francis Ford Coppola is like a pretty competent director and knows how to like compose a scene, etc., etc. But you know, the reputation that this movie has, I do not think the viewing experience matches up with like this is the worst piece of shit that's ever been made of all time. I just don't I don't see it.
Yeah.
You know. So I'd be curious what his read is on it, cuz like he probably would have been like the target demo of this movie, because man, I can almost see my grandma's handwriting on the side of a VHS tape that says Leonard Part 6. Like, I don't think this is one that we ever watched as a kid, but like I can see her like Bill Cosby, that's a trusted name in TV. You know, I know it's going to be funny and entertaining and it's not going to be too like out there and too like raunchy or bad. So like I can tape this off the TV and like show the grandkids this. Like, I swear to God, I remember it being written on the side of a tape. Obviously, all that shit's gone now. I don't know. Those tapes probably got thrown away, but it's just like, I think she might have had this movie. This is like 100% a grandma's basement VHS movie.
Yeah. I don't always do this with Spud Dud movies, because a lot of the times they are just like more definitively duds to me. So it's like, yeah, they're like a 1 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10, you know?
Right.
But this, like, if we were doing normal scale, it's like 4, maybe. I don't know. That's where I'm at. Spud Dud is tough. I don't know. Maybe it's a 5 out of 10. I don't know. It's somewhere in there. Spud Dud. Maybe I'll go dud, but it's pretty close. I don't know. You know, it's close to the middle either way. Part of me, it's one of those where it's like a dud, but I'm not saying like it's not a total waste of time, but it's more just because I thought it was like a fine movie, like it was like an okay movie.
Yeah.
Short and sweet, and there's some fun elements to it. I thought the Oracle killed it. I thought she was a lot of fun. Got some funny bits. And as far as it being a Spud, it wouldn't be more like so bad it's good. It's more of just like a curiosity. Like sometimes I'll give one like a Spud rating because it's like it's very interesting. But I'm like, I don't know if it quite gets there. It's just, I don't know, it's muddled. It's a muddy movie. Yeah. So that's right.
I think for normal scale, I'm right around there. 4, maybe 5 with a reviewing, but that's pretty much, you know, there's stuff to like. There's stuff that is like genuinely like absurdist and weird and funny for it. I know at the beginning of the episode I was like, oh, I'm gonna put my cards on the table and say that this is a Spud. I don't think it. In my mind, I'm gonna go with dud over Spud, only because the funny and entertaining moments of this movie aren't ironic. It's not like The Room where you're laughing because it's bad and incompetently done. The moments in this movie where you're laughing are because it's like a weird bit that pays off and is funny. All the frogs get under the car and leapfrog his car into the water. Like the rainbow trout looks at a picture of a guy but then stops to read a Playboy magazine because he's horny, and then he like kills the guy. Like there is that like Naked Gun style like spy satire spoofy type stuff in this. And I think some of it does work and some of it is funny. So it's like it's not really a spud in that sense like Ben and Arthur is, where it's like, remember me, bitch? Like that like, you know, that kind of weird stuff. That's not in this. I mean, maybe like the visual gag of them covering each other with food, which is very like, what a weird ending this movie had.
Yeah,
where
it's
weird
like
that
it goes back to that. Yeah,
because like, you know, you'd think like, you know, the first time they have dinner, it's like, okay, she's doing this as a revenge thing. Like she's tricking him into thinking that he's got a chance. And then he comes over for dinner and he thinks he's, you know, a hot shot. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to get my wife back. And then she pours food all over him. And she kind of like slowly escalates it. Like she pours wine on his sleeve and he's like, oh no, it's okay. It's okay. Like that'll come out. It's fine. And then she pours like soup on his suit and then smushes his face in like the crab or the shrimp and rice or whatever.
Yeah.
But then it's like they have this dinner at the end where you're like, oh, they're gonna get back together, and then he's just like, oh, why don't you do it for old time's sake? And then she covers him in like corn chowder, and I'm like, is this a fetish that he has now?
Yeah.
I'm like, what a weird ending for like what would normally be like a romantic ending. It like totally subverts that, and it's just like, here's our fetish on display. I don't know. Maybe he gets an extra star for having a very bold ending like that, where it's like gross out weird shit. But all that to say, it's a dud, but that's only because it's a kind of funny but more bad than good movie. Like I'm not moving it out of the dud cup, but it's like on the cusp. There are a few things that if they had done differently, if they were allowed to be a little bit more raunchy, I think this would have been right in there with just like a, you know, kind of a forgotten B movie. At least we got the Oracle and Sarah Palmer out of this. Like some of these people went on to do other stuff.
Yeah. Bill Cosby went on to do some other stuff too.
Woo, sure did.
Sorry with mine. I'm talking about.
You saw a new thing.
I did, yeah, brand new, which will be almost 3 weeks old by the time this episode comes out. Hot off the presses, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the new Beetlejuice. It was. Hey, have you seen the old one? Are you familiar with
I want to. I want to see it now that this is out, and like, spoilers, I've heard it's okay.
Yeah, it's it seems like it's been getting like pretty solid reviews as far as I could tell. And I thought it honestly I don't really know like what like, because part of me thinks that like you'd only really like the first one if it's one that you saw like as a kid, because like Beetlejuice the character could be like really annoying, I guess, but like I like him. I think Michael Keaton's great as the character, and in this new one it's like between this and fucking what's the other like legacy sequel that came out this year, well I guess kind of Alien, but that's not what I was thinking of, Twisters, where like that was just like one movie from like 30 years ago. And I thought Twisters was like, for a legacy sequel, pretty good. And I thought this Beetlejuice was like pretty good for a legacy sequel. Like it was a lot. I went into it thinking I was gonna hate it. There are so many
mistakes you can make with legacy sequels. There are so many like things you can do that it's like blatant fan service, like shitty stuff, like the Ghostbusters movies comes to mind, where it's just like Dan Aykroyd's back and Bill Murray's back, you know, that shit.
Yeah. And well, and also like Tim Burton, I feel like the last movie that he like was actually trying on was like Sweeney Todd, maybe.
I thought you were gonna say Ed Wood.
Oh no. He's
Sweeney Todd's all right. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a second, but I remember liking Sweeney Todd.
I really like Sweeney Todd. So it was just nice to see like oh, this actually feels kind of like an older Tim Burton. Like it feels like Beetlejuice. It doesn't feel as phoned in as it totally could have. Like it looks really nice, coloring's nice, like the cinema, like it looks and feels like an kind of older school like Tim Burton movie, which is really cool, really refreshing. And everyone in the cast is good. It seems like it feels like one of those movies that was probably like a ton of fun to make. Like everyone on set was having like a really good time. Like Michael Keaton again kills it. He's so good in the role. Like he's so much fun as the character. And then Justin Theroux is a lot of fun too. There's a lot of like really just kind of like over the top, you know, kind of in the Tim Burton style like characters. They kind of explore a lot more of the afterlife rules, and it's kind of like Hellraiser, where there's like this kind of elaborate like lore to the afterlife. And then this movie it just like expands on what the first movie does, and you kind of get more of like, oh, then there's like this thing, and like, oh, if this happens to you, then this is what it's like. Okay, it's kind of cool how it just kind of gives you more of that stuff. My biggest criticism is that the plot, I think, is pretty meandering. It felt like, my theory is that like in his brain he was thinking trilogy, but then like, you know, including the original one, so like 2 more movies, I guess, but then was also like, oh, but this one, if this one doesn't make any money, then we're not going to get funding for a 3rd one, so I'm just going to put all my ideas for the 2 movies into one, because there's certain like story arcs that there's just a lot of stuff going on, and then like certain story arcs will just kind of like end, and then that's done with, and then the rest of the movie keeps going, and so it felt a little like kind of messy, a little like convoluted in that way, but the comedy's good. You know, there's a lot of good bits, performances are good. It does kind of like do some semi like rehash of a lot of jokes. Like I feel like a lot of the legacy sequel, especially for comedies, they'll like kind of redo jokes, like redo like famous bits from like the first one. So like I'm sure even though you haven't seen it, you know, like all like the Harry Belafonte stuff. They do like the Dale.
Yeah.
It's like a scene where they get like possessed and by the ghosts, and then the ghosts, they just possess them to do like the whole like song and dance performance to like Harry Belafonte. And they kind of do like a similar thing in this, with not Belafonte again, but that one kind of worked. But then there were some other bits where I'm like, oh yeah, that's just a callback, haha. Kind of like in Alien Romulus, like when they do the like, get away from her, you bitch, like that stuff. Yeah, there's just it's just kind of like lines that they'll pull back to, and I'm like, it was better than the original one. But there's a lot of, it's mostly original jokes. I'm just saying that there's some of that stuff in there, and I think for the most part the comedy works. Yeah, I mean, of course, like I still like prefer the original one. Yeah, surprise, but
yeah.
I would definitely still like watch this one again. Like, you know, if I watched the original, I would probably watch this one after. You know,
so there aren't any other Beetlejuice movies though, right? Like it's just the Tim Burton one.
Correct.
And then I feel like they made like an animated series like they did with
Something
every
like that,
thing in the 90s.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think of like Beetlejuice as a franchise when there's only like one movie and then maybe like a cartoon. Like, I don't know, it seems more like in the cultural zeitgeist than like, you know, like you would almost think that it's just like, oh yeah, there's like sequels upon sequels upon sequels. But it is crazy to me that there's just one movie came out, because it's like, I feel like, you know, if you go up to someone in the street and you do like the Beetlejuice, and it's like you have to say his name 3 times. Like, I know that, and I've never seen this movie. Like, there's just like certain things about this movie that's like, it's crazy that it's just like a singular movie. It's not like a big franchise. Like, and I'm surprised that never happened to it. Like, is it an original Tim Burton creation, or is it like loosely based on?
I mean, I think it is. I think
Okay.
it's just like a, you know, Edward Scissorhands type deal or
Interesting.
whatever.
Because it's like he really had like his finger on the pulse there, like of like creating something that's like original, but also just like has this like huge staying power in culture.
Yeah, I do think that he wanted to make a sequel, that it just never came to be for the longest time. And also I read recently that the studio didn't like the name, and they thought the movie should have been called House Ghosts. Which is really dumb. That's an awful name.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Just call it movie that scares you.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the most lame generic shit you could think of. Like,
yeah, for real.
House Ghosts.
Yeah. Dumb pieces of shit.
So Jeffrey Jones wasn't in this.
Yeah, no. Another great father figure from the 80s.
Yeah.
No, it's funny how they, guess I won't say, but they like incorporate it so like his character is in it physically, but they do it in a way that like, I think it's done in a really like smart way to where it's not like, I think it's done in a way to where like if you were just the average audience member who probably has not kept up on Jeffrey Jones from the past 30 years, that like the way that it's done, it would not seem weird. You just think, oh, that's a funny gag and a funny way to like portray the character in this one. And it does it in a way to where like you are none the wiser if you don't know about it. But then if you do know, you're like, oh, that's really funny. That's really clever how they got around using this guy, but still having the character in it. And it's such a bummer because I like his character. Like, he was such a great character actor in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He's fucking awesome in that movie.
Yeah.
He's in Amadeus
like,
too.
Yes, Amadeus too.
Yeah. We're gonna say arguably like the best part.
In Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like I think the number of laughs I get in that movie are the principal.
Yeah.
Like when he's walking around with his sunglasses and they're like, "Pew!" Like
He's
that
great.
shit.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where I got back to the thing that I wrote in the document, is that like my thinking, and I'm not saying in this, because I like how they work around it, like I said, in this, but like it bummed me out, like realizing just like how great he was in those movies in the 80s, but like obviously, and for good reason, he's not in movies anymore.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be punished for that, right? We shouldn't be deprived of these. So, in this is also a response to the recent, I guess, controversy lately over, you know, I guess spoilers now. It's been out for even longer. Whatever. For spoilers for Alien Romulus, it's still relatively recent, so I guess I'll say. But the deep fake a dead
Ian
actor
Holm.
into that, Ian
Yeah.
Holm. and a lot of people got upset, fairly enough. So my proposal is, instead of that, let's just deep fake in all these like blacklisted like sex
horrific
pest
pieces
guys
of shit.
who horrific like monsters who are also really funny and really like entertaining actors. I'm like, I wish I could see Jeffrey Jones in a movie again, but like not him, or like not support him directly or whatever. So
if that means he gets compensated or he gets money for it, then like I would rather not have him in it. But you know, that desire is still there because like he's funny.
There's got to be some loophole like where that's like something they can add on to like the national like sex offender registry. Like you don't get to say whether
you lose your
deep-faked.
likeness.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Your likeness is now owned by Warner Brothers because you're a sex offender.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We've lost so many great pedophiles, sex offender actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my pitch to Hollywood. Abuse them.
Yeah, exactly. You lose your likeness, you lose your royalties. We still get to enjoy your performances.
Yeah.
Someone in a mocap suit will be you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll bring it up only because it is something that I think will be maybe out of the news cycle when this episode drops. So like I wouldn't want to save it for like a future episode. But remember like a week ago or like one of our previous episodes, we were kind of talking about like the Fallout TV show, and we're like, hey, maybe like video game adaptations are kind of good again. Like we had the Fallout show, we had like what was that other one? Last of Us was like pretty decent, had some good stuff in it. And then all of that was immediately like just ripped away with like the Borderlands movie, which I didn't see it, but I heard that was like terrible.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
And then this Minecraft trailer drops. And it is like so incomprehensible. Have you seen it?
I watched it. Yeah, I watched it.
I do not understand who this appeals to. Like obviously it's like it's Minecraft, so it's going to print money, and like parents are going to take their kids to it. But like, has Jack Black really reached that status where he can just like keep his look and like do whatever he wants? Because not to compare their like levels of talent, but I was like, Keanu Reeves basically is like John Wick in everything that he does now. Like at least his hairstyle. Like
right,
I don't. Yeah. Keanu Reeves is just
Cyberpunk.
like he looks like John Wick in everything that he does now because he's just like he keeps that long hairstyle with like the beard.
I think the only thing he shaved for was Bill and Ted 3.
Yeah. And then I'm like, Jack Black shows up and he's like wearing a shirt that's the same color as Steve in Minecraft's.
Right. Yeah.
But he still has like his huge wild beard and wild hair. And I'm like, you couldn't even like they didn't even try to like, you know, trim his beard down, trim his hair down, maybe give him like kind of a weird look, like a blockheady look. It felt so incredibly lazy and strange. And I guess we had it too good for not long enough with like video game adaptations, and then they're like, no, these are shitty again. Jason Momoa's in it for whatever reason. Just like watching the trailer, it looks so like soulless. Like it's like they walk out of a portal, which I think the portal's the wrong color. It's not even like the purple like nether portal.
Well, I don't think it's supposed to be that.
Aether, like an Aether portal, which I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the Minecraft like lore, like all that shit. I didn't read no Minecraft books.
Man, I missed a couple updates, and there's already like so much more stuff. So who knows? Maybe they have built a portal to the real world in Minecraft now.
Well, I guess we can't use that phrase anymore. Like, I want to shoot that guy in Minecraft because they built a portal. But it just looks like the most soulless piece of shit, because I know that like the entire thing, like the actors are like walking around like looking in amazement and wonder, and it's just like you're looking at like overhanging lights in a big blue room, and you are like digitally superimposed into this environment. There's like nothing magical about it to me.
Yeah,
at
it's
all.
really sad.
And it just like the lighting looks weird, because I know with like green screen shit you have to make sure the lighting's right so it doesn't look like unnatural or whatever. But it's like I feel like they just corrected too far, and it looks so terrible. So we went from We Are So Back to It's Over for video game movie adaptations until the new season of The Last of Us comes out, and then it's like maybe we're kind of back. Or Fallout, yeah.
Or fucking Zelda's getting a movie now too.
Is that actually happening? I'll believe that when I see it.
I think it's actually for real happening this time. I think. It doesn't matter. I'm not excited.
Because that was always like that was something that you would get tricked on like YouTube or Facebook. That was like, they finally did it. They announced a Legend of Zelda live action movie, and it's a trailer that some guy shot with his friends with like kind of nice cameras, and then everyone would be like, oh my god, it's finally happening.
Or
is there a trailer with Anya Taylor-Joy, or is this a fan-made thing? It's a
Zelda?
teaser trailer concept. There's no trailer yet. Okay.
No, I don't think she's in it, as far as I know. I don't know if they've done any casting or anything like that.
Oh, this is Jesus, this is like AI generated, it looks like.
Oh.
From Screen Culture, 1.15 million subscribers.
No, that's right.
What a cool use of your platform.
They do have. Oh, that's right. It's directed by this guy Wes Ball, which is not like, I don't know if I've really seen well, I guess I have seen one of his movies, but he basically just does like, I don't know what you call it, like studio, like for hire stuff. Like, I don't know if he really has any like here, I'll just read off. So he's done his movies. So he's done 4 feature-length movies, it looks like. The Maze Runner trilogy and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So there's no like, it's not even like he started with some like indie darling hit and then he got picked up by the studio. So you can't be like, oh yeah, but his first movie was like amazing, you know.
The whole like auteur thing, like, oh yeah, you know.
Yeah, it's just those like studio movies. So like that's probably what this. It's not a good sign. No, in my opinion. Now, again, not that like I really would have much hope regardless, just because I don't know. I can't like care about it too much because I feel like it's just going to be disappointing no matter what.
Yes. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
It is. Excited. So excited that we are for the next we have a long month ahead of us, so it's going to be the next 5 episodes for the month of October for our spooky month. We're going back to weekly episodes. So you'll get, I guess, double us for the month of October, because we really like, I don't know what it is about it. It's like it's something comes over you, the spirit of
I think it's the weather too. You get like a break from 80, 90 degree days.
Yeah,
the tree, it's like beautiful outside. It's like, I don't know, there's something about it.
Yeah, where we live is like, we do kind of have like, we live in the perfect place for like October and like Halloween movies. It's just a vibe, man.
Mm-hmm.
So to honor that vibe, yeah, we're going back to weekly for this. And what we're gonna start with next week is our horror correspondent, our horrorespondent.
Nice.
Chris. It works better if you read it than say it out loud, but Chris is gonna come back. At least for this next one, he's gonna try to be for as many of them as he can. But at least for this next one, and he is bringing in 2 movies for us to talk about. One of which is Late Night with the Devil from 2023, and that's directed by Cameron and Colin Cairns. And then the other one is Lake Mungo from 2008, and that's directed by Joel Anderson. Have we done double features for him every time? I don't know.
I think so. Because the first time he came on, I think it was
it was
what was it?
Descent and Magnetic Rose.
Right.
And then we did those were kind of like unofficial, because it was like Magnetic Rose is like, that's kind of just like a short film.
I think he was like kind of torn between the two, and we were like, oh, well, if it's just a short, bring in both of them. And then that sort of unofficially became what we do, because then last year he brought in Skinamarink and the Outwaters.
That was also just kind of like impromptu, because I think he did the Outwaters, but then we were like, he was like, we can talk about Skinamarink, so we ended up watching Skinamarink, and
it
wasn't necessarily like totally planned that we were going to do the double, but now it is. So
yes,
got those two, Lake Mungo and Late Night with the Devil. So yeah, watch those before the next episode if you don't want to be spoiled for either of them. These episodes come out on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. EST on YouTube in video form, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more in audio form. We also have social pages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And dang it, I meant to have one of my cats in here with me, because I was going to say, and here, we'll do one of these. And with all that said, Quellish.
Yes. Woo. Hold it. Oh shit, he's actually dead. And as always, death to all humans. And I'm Nick. Quellish.